Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my podcast, the Richard Dickson podcast. I feel like I have to create a new name for this at some point because the Richard Dickson podcast just doesn't seem to be catching on yet. Not got to deal with Spotify. I haven't released an energy drink yet. That seems like everyone else does that. These are my own blue blockers from Amazon. I didn't design these, and I'm not selling them. I don't feel like I'm fitting the podcast stereotype just now. Maybe I need to start switching things up. Today we're talking about constraints in business, right? And guess what your biggest constraint probably is? It's probably you. You are probably the biggest constraint in your business. Whether you are a solopreneur, you lead a team of 10 plus, you lead a team of 40 plus, to be totally honest. Pardon me, I just was nearly sick in my own mouth, so if you heard me burp into the mic, it's nothing personal, but I was doing the burp to stop myself actually vomiting onto the mic, which would have been really embarrassing in the video. Yeah, your biggest constraint is probably you, and your business can only grow to the extent of the constraint. So, for example, if you have a 100 litre water carrier and you sell cups of water and you want to have more water to sell, you can only at that point carry 100 litres. You would need to, that's your constraint, you would need to get 150 litres, 200 litres to grow beyond the constraint of the water, right? Now, an important thing to think about at the start is that, we all have specific skill sets in business and life, and they don't always complement a business fully. That's why so many businesses don't actually become real businesses. They stay as just self-employed individual people with, maybe a couple of freelancers that help them now and then, not even regularly on retainers, just like, oh, need to edit on my website, or simple stuff like that. They have a bookkeeper that they pay every month that reconciles the books, and they stay there and they never grow. And everyone who does that tells me they're happy, and I kinda, for the most part, don't believe it. Like, my goals in life have become so much more simpler. I literally just want to disappear to Spain and live on an orange farm or something. I don't know what the hell I want to do, but I want to do something that is not quite as crazy as I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to, $100 million mega mansion thing. I don't think I'm that guy anymore, right? So things do change also, right? But many people tell me, oh yeah, I'm happy just being myself, one man band, word of mouth business. I'm not really convinced that you are, because I think to be in business anyway, you need to have a degree of competition and pride and drive, and you would naturally feel like you're not anywhere near your potential, right? You would 10x where you are not near your potential. And that is because people are held back by that constraint. Constraints can come in the way of skills, they can come in the way of like mental capacity or beliefs around certain things can constrain you from growing. AKA, anyone I had, that I was talking about this with my own dad like 2 weeks ago. He's like, I can't hire any more staff. Like, my dad's staff for the last 10 years of his business have been me, his son, my cousin, who's now completing his apprenticeship, my best friend from school, who grew up in the same area as us. My dad's known since he was 3, right? And my dad's own best friend who he worked with for years. That shows you that he does not trust anyone, right? Because my dad subcontracted for so many years, and in subcontracting, it was natural for not being able to steal each other's work. That makes it sound criminal and illegal, but there was a lot of undercutting and things going on. So my dad has carried that belief system into his business now, and has never went out and actually hired any full-time qualified staff. He's had apprentices like me and stuff like that, but he's never went out and just hired someone, because that constraint mentally has held him back from doing it. And we spoke about this for an hour on the golf course a couple of weeks ago, and he's saying to me, yeah, but anyone I hire is going to come in and want to steal my work, and they're going to want a lot of money and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, Dad, you're saying that because that's what you would do. You would be there and you would want paid big money because you're good at what you do and you've always been self-employed, so you're not used to being paid an hourly rate. And if the person who owned the job asked you to take it over instead of the other person, you would do it. This is like people who constantly cheat on their girlfriends and then end up with a girl that they actually love and never trust them, because they are going and like sleeping with other people's girlfriends. It adds up. You know what I mean? Like being a mad philanderer is going to come back and get you one day, right? I know that personally. So these things happen. You outgrow that stuff, right? But you lack trust because of your own actions, your own constraints, right? So my dad is still, and I got him round to it. I convinced him, but not enough that I think he's not went back to his old way of thinking. Because he's like, yeah, no, I understand her. Like, Dad, there's plenty of people out there who will take a fair salary for a fair job with fair benefits, and who just want to turn up and work and go home. My problem as an entrepreneur was that I thought because I want to be an entrepreneur, anyone who ever worked with me shared the feeling of always wanting to be an entrepreneur. Nobody was actually happy being employed. Everybody wanted to be employed temporarily on the basis that they were going to become an entrepreneur at some point, because that was me. And I thought that of everyone. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to bring people in, I'm going to train them, and I'm going to invest money into them, and they're just going to leave, right? And I remember saying this to a friend of mine, and I said, you know, I'm looking at the costs, and I'm like, bringing in staff, and then taking these staff, and we invest in education for the staff, right? As and when is required, and invest in good technology and good software and whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm going to spend this there, and I'm going to spend that. Like, look at what that's going to cost the business. I says, and my point was, like, what do I do if I spend all that and then they leave? I spend all that money to get them more skills and they leave. And he said to me, what happens if you don't and they stay? And I was just like, whoa. It was one of those moments that something just hits you, and I went, oh, geez, oh, yeah. Like, true. Really true. And I had to detach from that, because I thought everyone wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I was thinking to myself, why would someone come to my event? And by the way, I champion entrepreneurship, and if any of my staff want to become entrepreneurs, I hope they do. I can't get up and talk about entrepreneurship all day on my videos and expect them, when they're editing stuff, not to pick that up, not to be, maybe not motivated, sounds a bit stupid, but like to not have that pique their interest, right? So I had to detach from that constraint. I was never going to build a good team, because let me tell you, I was a terrible leader, like a truly terrible leader. My first 2 or 3 members of staff, I was horrendous. I wasn't unkind, I wasn't a bully, I wasn't unfair. I had extremely high expectations with very poor leadership, very poor structure. I always looked at other people first to find the fault instead of looking at myself to see what I could have done better. I was just a crap leader, and that was a skill that I needed to learn to get past that constraint. Now, other constraints you might think, like, I'm good at sales, but I don't have the desire to be a salesperson all the time. It's not something I want to do. I don't get on sales calls anymore. So for me to get to where I wanted to be, so I had to be able to sit in front of the camera like this for hours at a time and make content after content after content after content, some of which never gets used, plus in front of the camera making all the ads, plus at events coaching people, plus one-to-one coaching, plus my own life and all that other stuff. I had to get away from sales. So I had to hire to my constraint. So don't think that I'm saying right now that you need to fix all your constraints. You need to hire to the constraint. So I knew that I needed better sales in my business, and it wasn't going to be me that done it. So I had to go and get an expert salesperson and build a team around that person, right? Now, salespeople are great because all I needed to do, in theory, thankfully I had more than that, so I hired quite aggressively for a few months, but all I had to have was 3 months of that person's base salary there, right? 3 months of their base salary. Salespeople are meant to generate money straight away, right? That's what they're there to do. And, you know, the commission, motivated, and they eat what they kill, and boom, nice one. So I could go and hire that person. I knew that I was spending so much time recording video, editing video, posting stuff out there, that I needed a videographer, right? Now, does that videographer, in terms of posting a video, does that make me money? No. But does it free up my money to do other things, and free up my time to do other things and work on other parts of the organization and make more money that way? Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. So it is still an income producing hire because it gives me something back. So it removes those constraints, the constraints of time, the constraints of skills. I can't edit anyone near as good as my guys can anyway. I was editing on iMovie, clipping corners off the stuff and using spinning frame changes and that. Like, it looked like a blind orangutan that'd been hit with a tractor was making that stuff, right? And now I've got these guys who are so much better than me doing that stuff instead, and it's like a breeze for them. Like, yeah, we have a high output. I'm not saying that they just sit all day and do nothing, but the skill for editing they've honed over the years. I'm not going to go and fix that constraint by spending years getting good at that thing and neglecting the stuff that I'm actually already good at. I'm going to focus on the stuff that I'm good at, understand and know my constraints, because guess what? If you have blind spots, you're going to get blindsided. If you have gaps that aren't filled, something's going to fill it and it's going to be negative, right? So we need to hire to our constraints. We know that our constraint is here. We know that it's this thing. And as soon as see, if you don't know, you don't know, right? And that doesn't mean that if you kind of know and you just ignore it a little bit, it's fine. That makes you ignorant. That's what you are, ignorant. And you're putting your organization at risk. But instead of solving the constraints, we need to hire to the constraints. And we need to look at ourselves and see because it all comes from us, right? If we could do everything in a business, we'd never have a need to hire. But for us to get to $1 million plus a year and more, right? Like for me to do that, I had to have a team. I couldn't do it myself. There are some people in the world who can, but we're all different. I needed a team. I need people there to help me. I needed assistants. I needed admin. I needed sales. I needed events. I needed ads. I needed media. All that stuff. And I'll need more. We need to expand. We're going to need to move office soon. We've not got enough space, right? And that's just part of me growing to my constraints and hiring for my constraints. So what you think about just now, think about 3 things in your business that take up the most of your time or energy or effort or emotion, or that hold you back from being the 150k a month business instead of the 50k a month business, and put together a plan on how you're going to solve it, and detach from the no one else can do this as good as me. Oh, I'm scared to bring people into my business because I've been burnt before. Do you know the amazing thing about all that stuff is? All of that stuff is your fault and your problem. You're too scared to bring people in. That's a you problem. How amazing is that? Is that 99% of the problems in business that hold us back from growing are problems that we have full control over. Like, that's amazing. That's actually such a good thing, because we have 100% control over those things being fixed and getting the organization to where we want it to be. Amazing, right? So think about those 3 things. How are we going to solve them? Who can solve them? How are they going to benefit us going forward? What can we do with the time that we save, with the headspace that we save, or the new income that we generate from those people, right? Guys, you cannot outgrow your constraints. If you are in a 2 foot by 2 foot crate, you're never going to get taller than 2 foot by 2 foot. You can't. You need to get yourself out of those constraints to be able to grow. And it doesn't need to be you. It's you that's probably causing them. It's you that has them. But it's not you that needs to learn the things to fix that. Oh, I'll just do that thing myself, and I'll learn Facebook ads, and I'll learn this, and I'll learn that. Like, we work with so many people at Growth Getters that go and learn a whole bunch of new skills to complement their businesses. Not to go and, like, do another career inside of the business, but just to get better at things inside the organisation. That's awesome. And running your own ads and all that is cool. But I know that when those people decide they want to be a 10 million a year business, they're going to use the skills they learned from us as a benchmark to hire the right person, because they've made more money through the skills they got from us, to go and hire the right guy or girl to take them to 10 million a year. Simple, right? So what are your constraints? What do they look like? How are we going to grow past them? What do you need to do? Do you need to get coaching? Do you need to speak to someone? Is there someone you need to fire and get out of your office as a bad egg? I don't know. Only you know. But it's something to think about. Don't be restricted by the constraints. We need to find a way to chop them down, hire up to them, and that's the way that we're actually going to be able to grow. And until we get them gone, growth is going to be almost impossible. And if not impossible, way more difficult than it has to be. And it's already really bloody hard. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe, follow, like. If you're on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Peace.